What's going on, everybody? This is ChainBreakers TV. This is our first installment of Real Talk on ChainBreakers TV, and this is Real Talk with Nine and Ryan. He's been my best friend / brother for the last 21 years. And go ahead and let him know what we're going to do today.
Like he said, we've been best friends almost forever, pretty much our whole life.
Pretty much forever.
And what we normally do, we like to talk about a lot of stuff. We like to talk about world events, politics, racism, everything you could think of, life situations, relationships. And I think today's topic is mostly going to be about how we live our life, things we experience, like me, for example, black man, things I go through, as well as what Nine Forte go through. So it should be an interesting subject. Hope you guys enjoy. All right, Tom, kick it out.
Let's get into it. Now, we went to a private Lutheran school together for the first how many years?
Well, for you probably went before me, didn't you?
No,
you went to
I went
right?
the same time as you.
Kindergarten. So I would say 8 years.
Yeah,
8 years.
8 years.
Kindergarten through 8th grade.
That's a long time.
Long
same
time.
school. But it didn't feel like a private school because we didn't have uniforms and we didn't have all the weird rules.
Right. Even though it was a Christian school, it felt like, it wasn't so Christian when we weren't doing Christian things like going to church. I mean, we talked about, just like what any other kids would talk about in school. We talk about music. We talked about pretty girls, even though there weren't so many girls at our school. We talked about all kinds of things kids would talk about, so it was interesting.
What was it like growing up where you grew up and then going to that school?
Well, me as a black man, I was the only black person in the classroom every year except for the first 2 years,
and
kindergarten and the last year. But I will say this, as a black person, being in that school, I felt like I fit in. I felt like I fit in. It seemed like, I guess, since we all grew up, since we were 5 or 6 years old at Trinity, everyone treated me like I was like them. It was basically like no one really noticed I was black, but they knew I was black.
Right.
So we talked about...
And you didn't get that, it's because you're black.
Yeah.
Until you were in like...
maybe 7th or 8th grade when people actually started paying attention. To me being black. Yeah. But
right.
But really,
it's like, wait a minute, you're black?
It's like, since when, man? Like, we knew you so long. Now why your skin darker than ours? Well, man, dude, like, it's like someone just pretty much like, it's like you were Stevie Wonder all these years until someone actually turned the switch on. Now you can see that I'm a black man.
Right.
Being in those schools, being in that school, I learned everything. Everyone treated me like they treated everyone else that went there. No one pretty much said, okay, you can't play this game because you're black. You won't be able to learn what we're learning in school because you're black. Or, it wasn't silly stuff like that. People actually treated me like a person. But I guess that's because, growing up with someone, your whole life, that's how it is. Like you see those memes, they always say, hey, you know what, you're not born a racist. So someone have to teach you how to hate a person,
how to be racist,
how to hate a person who's different from you. Well, no one taught us how to hate each other like that. We just loved each other. We were like family. So it was interesting. I loved it.
Now, when I was at Trinity, I felt the same. I felt like I fit in. Everything was cool. I would kind of just got along with everybody for the most part. And a little bit of a bully, people tell me, until my last few years. A little bit. Why are you laughing?
I just got to laugh. Just keep going.
But, my experience was different once I left Trinity, though. When I was in about 8th grade, going into high school, I went to that other school for 2 years.
You went to IC?
Yeah, I went to IC
and I went to
for 2 years, and you went to Willowbrook, all 4. But when I got there, it was totally different. It was a totally different thing. It was like I was looked at as an outcast. I was looked at as I'm not black enough for the black crowd. I'm not Hispanic enough for the Hispanic crowd. And I'm not white enough or I'm too hood for the white crowd. So I really just didn't fit in anywhere. But at that school, I didn't really care because I knew I was leaving. But then at Willowbrook, when I transferred in, we had some classes together.
Right.
It was funny that when we came from the schools, we both had to take the same placement test.
Right.
You took that reading one, and then I took that reading one. But it was just different. Like at that school, I felt a little more included,
right,
but not with the same groups that I felt secluded from. I was more friends with everybody who was Hispanic and Black at that school,
right,
than versus anybody else.
Right.
And I would just come home from school and I'd be standing there at the bus stop when I was at IC, and people would just see me hood up, you know, listening to my music. Or sometimes I didn't even have a hood up. I was just walking home, but I just had such a hard face. People would lock their doors. People lock their doors on me, walk the other way on me, look like I'm a criminal, and I get the cops called on me all the time.
Oh, gosh.
All the time. Sitting in front of my own house. Got the cops called on me and swarmed. 4 cop cars with lights on.
That's nuts.
Flashing right in me.
That's crazy.
Saying that a suspicious vehicle was in front. Me.
That's crazy.
What about you?
I mean, for me, Willowbrook, I had a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So what I mean about that is, when I first came to Willowbrook, everything was cool, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hung out with everybody. You know, it didn't matter what color you were.
What table did you sit at?
I was all over the place, though, with tables. But I will say the table I sat at the most was really a table that was mixed full of all colors. Okay. You know what I'm saying? It didn't matter what color you were, white, black, Hispanic, Middle Eastern. It didn't matter. You know, I sat at a table that was just mixed. But the thing is, even though everyone was able to relate to me, it seemed like the people who were black would just say, yo, why don't you just sit at a black table?
Right.
And then that's when I was getting like all this crap, like, oh, you must not want to be black. You must be an Oreo, or you're a white boy and just trapped inside of a black body. And I'm like, it's not that. I'm cool with everybody. Right. You know, it's like they're not paying attention who's also sitting at the table.
Before I got to Willowbrook, did you have any black girlfriends at that school?
I didn't have no girlfriends except for one my freshman year, you know, and she was Latina. Right. But she was a mixed Latina.
I thought you had an Asian girl.
I never had an Asian girfriend. Never had an Asian girlfriend. Because I wish I had an Asian girlfriend. but far as like girlfriends, I didn't get into many relationships in high school. There were girls I had crushes on, girls that I was interested in, but I was always shy a little bit when it came to like pushing it.
Not when I got to high school.
Well, when you got to high school, man, I was mannish, boy. I was feeling myself a little too much. But then again, I was still afraid to get in a relationship. But I love the fact that girls looked at me as hard to get.
So do you think that you not having many girlfriends, or specifically black girlfriends, played a part in how the black table viewed you?
Yeah, because then they started saying you don't like black girls. You must be one of those type of guys who just want white girls, even though they never even seen me be with a white girl.
Right.
But they just assumed that they were
just
quick to
because it's a non-black girl.
So it wasn't really the fact that, oh, you know, you didn't have, how come you never had no girlfriends? That would just led to another conversation. When it came to that, they thought I was gay, but I'm not gay. I'm not gay. But. See, this is what happens when you have best friends for so many years. They like to play with you, play with your mind.
But
not
just, like that.
Not like that, but just play. You know what I mean? Like just doing too much. But going back to the topic, me not having black girlfriends, a lot of black people, especially black girls, were always on my case with, you don't date black girls, or you don't like black girls, or how come you never talked to one of us? It wasn't that. You know, it was just a lot of things I seen that I just wasn't attracted to when it came to all the girls. You know, that's why they never seen me in the hallways with a girlfriend. You know, but I love all girls. It didn't matter, you know, what color you are. If you're a great person, sexy, whatever, I love you. So it doesn't. I'm just saying, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But going back to you though, I know a lot of girls always liked you, and I know
what
you
can
were
I
kind of
say?
like me.
What can I say? What can I say?
But I will say that he was a man who had great motives, morals, and he had standards. You know, he preferred a girl who was real, not fake. And you know,
And apparently crazy.
Yeah.
Because the ones I had in high school were crazy.
Yeah, and then, there was a lot
I
of
had
them. Yeah.
after high school were crazy.
Right. You know, so.
And the one I got right now,
She's looking at you, man. I wouldn't even take the chance to say something right now.
she knows she crazy.
But
I'm gonna die.
Yeah, you might, man. You just wait till we're done recording this. She gonna jump on you, or she might do it while it's recording.
Nah, she making jewelry. If anything, I'll get like a bead thrown at me. But then she'll say, "Throw it back," because I need that bead.
Right, you know. But he was a guy who, just like me, you know, at the time we weren't just gonna go for anything. No. You know, even though we were teenagers, we thought like mature men, young men. Our mothers raised us right. And
then now we feel like old men.
Right. But, you know, going back to how it was at Willowbrook, it was just more black people seemed to approach me about things than it was white people. Like, I just hung out with everyone. It didn't matter.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah, for me, it seemed that more black people approached me as just a cool person. Like, oh, man, he's one of us. Like, I was the light-skinned black kid everywhere, or you know. But it was funny though. But like white girls never approached me, and at least not that I knew of.
Yeah. Well, how did
never made it known? But I mean, it wasn't always girls that I wanted to approach me.
Right.
Like
right.
Buckmouth.
I thought
So all that was just when we were kids, and you know, everything, high school, fun and games, whatever, you know, little stuff, small stuff, and different things we experienced. But let's change it a little deeper and talk about how it's been recently. Some things that maybe you experienced recently, because I know you're in the Masters.
Yes.
And experience a lot of different things in your field. So what you got? What how does it feel to be a black man today?
Well,
in corporate America.
Well, far as like in corporate America, working on jobs, even as an educated black man or a man trying to achieve a professional degree and trying to make that transition working, a lot of the times when you're trying to communicate with others on your job, it's hard for your voice to be heard. You know, right. A lot of people don't value your voice compared to others. Like other people could give their opinion about something and they'll say, oh yeah, great idea. They'll try to ask you to pretty much like go deeper into what you're trying to say when it comes to like opinions. Like, oh yeah, can you elaborate further on what you mean about this or what you mean about that? Explain what you mean about that. Whereas me as a black man and also looking at other black men who are working, when they say certain things, it's like, oh, okay, you said what you got to say. Let's move forward. We don't really care about your voice. It's like they look at you as kind of like, all right, well, you as a black man, yeah, you're working for us. It's good and all. But there's not a lot of black people working here compared to whites, compared to Middle Easterns, compared to any other race, you know, just, right. You know, working there. You're pretty much the handful. You're pretty much the minority of a company. And they might look at you like, okay, you got your 2 cents in. That's cool. You can say what you want to say, but then it's like, oh, well.
So I know you told me the other day that how you said you noticed that there's like out of minorities, just period minorities, there's only like what? You and some other dude?
Yeah.
And isn't that kind of what Trinity was like?
Yeah.
How is this different?
Well, it could be different based upon the people you work with. They could have grown up differently. They could have been to a school where it was probably all white, or probably it was a mixed crowd, but there could have been hate thrown everywhere. Compared to Trinity, there was no hate. You know, a Christian private school, small school. You didn't have huge crowds like these people I could be working with, or people that I could have worked with in the past in other companies could have grown up in big schools where things were segregated.
So how has your experience been different?
My experience been different as far as working on the job.
Working there compared to how it was.
They make you actually see color. You know what I'm saying? Actually make you see.
And you didn't grow up like that.
No, like I didn't. I felt like I was in the crowd. You know, growing up with the kids, I was with everybody.
We grew up in a mixed neighborhood.
We grew up in a mixed neighborhood. Everybody got along though where I was at. In Brandywine, everybody was cool. Right. You know, Brandywine Villa Park. But, you know, just working, you know, in these environments, working these jobs, it just seemed like they make you see color, and you actually got to ask yourself, is it because I'm a black man? Right. Is it because I'm a young black man? Is it because I'm an educated black man, I might be seen as a threat to others? Or me trying to move up, is it the fact that I do have great ideas, but they don't want to see me pursue these ideas and make sure that these ideas will be successful? They don't want to help it. But as soon as someone else who's not black, doesn't matter what other color you are, the fact that majority of these other races do work in these companies, company that I worked for, you know, they might say something that we're not going to say. But
we trying to get a job.
If they were to say something, they'll value and build on to that idea, you know, because they look at them probably as more intelligent. They look at them as somebody as leaders, because pretty much people who would run that company would look like them. Right. So they make you question, well, is it white privilege? Which I don't believe in. I believe in racial privilege, or color privilege, which is totally different. We could elaborate on that in a few minutes, but right now we just sticking to the topic. So what about you?
My experience in the workplaces has been almost similar to high school, which is weird. I didn't go to college, so I wouldn't know what it's like beyond that. But in my field, I didn't really need to go to college. Right. I instead of putting the money into that, I put the money into myself. Right. And pursued it. Right. But from what I've noticed and what I saw is, I get along with pretty much everybody. Right. You know, and I've never felt any privilege based on myself, but I've felt a lot of opposition to me. Especially in my field and doing music. I mean, I started doing hip hop and rap music. Right. When I could be sitting right next to you, and let's just pretend you don't know how to play any instruments. Right. Which is a lie. But let's just pretend you don't know anything about making a track. Because you don't know your way around the programs and how to actually do it. Right. You know, but let's just pretend. If you were sitting right next to me and a dude comes in the room who's a rapper, he's going to talk to you first. Thinking you know what you're doing. Right. I could put in my 2 cents and he's going to ask you, what do you think, man? What do you think? As like a thing for that. So it's like I'm always left out, even though I'm the one who does that. Right. But that's what I've always experienced.
And that's why I said racial privilege other than white privilege. Now you pretty much transition it into this.
Into that.
Yeah. Okay. They'll ask me for my 2 cents because they look at me as the face of hip hop. Right. Face of rap. You know, and then I can't rap. He can. You know, and he can do other stuff
too.
The
most first 10 years.
Right. So if anything, he knows the pros and cons, the ifs and ands, and whatever you need to know about rap. But if they'll ask me because black men are the face of hip hop, black people are the face. I mean, that's
just the fact, though. Like, the black culture is the predominant culture in hip hop music.
Right. And why I said racial privilege is because, or you could just say color privilege. The reason why I say that is because the race that you normally see is successful, like in a field like hip hop, basketball. Right. You know, you see black people dominating the NBA, or you see white people dominating certain fields, maybe certain businesses, Asians dominating technology and so forth, they're going to look at them as the face of what their race is dominating. So it's like
you see, they take a stereotype and believe in that stereotype and hire based on a stereotype.
Right. That's why I don't like to say white privilege is too vague, and then it's just pretty much saying, oh, just white people this, white people that. No, it goes by what we're just explaining, like reputation. Especially in business. That's why when I mentioned earlier, it feels like my voice wasn't heard in certain companies I worked for because of that. So when it comes going back to where he's going, the stuff he went through, they would ask me to put my 2 cents in it, or for me to give an opinion, or for me to explain certain things about hip hop and rap, because they said, well, he's black, he must know how to rap, or if it's basketball, black, he must know how to play ball, like
when you can't play ball.
I can't play ball. None of us can play. Man, we ain't good ball players, man.
I played with the and one players.
You know what? That's back in
That's
1,000,001 years ago.
Going back to sports, people would look at me. I'm 5'10". Back when I was really playing basketball, I was between 5'8" and 5'9" most of the time. They would look at me like, oh, he's the scrappy little white kid, which is so far from the truth. But they would look at me like, oh, he's a shooter. He's a passer. But I could dunk, and I couldn't shoot at all.
Man, you still can't shoot. What are you talking? Yeah, you got your little off day.
I got an off day.
Well, you ain't playing when nobody's looking at you playing, and you by yourself in the gym.
Man, when I was
make your 10 lucky shots, and then somebody walks in, you brick it.
I played 5-on-5 the other day, and I was killing the first game. Then the second game, I couldn't make a shot because I was so tired.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I did. I made the first 6 points.
You and your imaginary friends?
No, 5 people, 5-on-5.
5-on-5.
Up at Export.
Okay.
Made the first 6 points for my team. And then I couldn't make a shot because I was out of breath.
And I could play hockey.
You could play. You probably could play hockey better than you can play basketball.
I probably can, honestly. I probably can. But for real, we can't play, bro. Come on.
Nah, not no more.
Not no more, man.
Not no more.
Not no more.
Ain't worth it.
Yeah, but other than that, it's just that's what I think it is. That's what I believe. I believe that a lot of people want to bash you or throw you down to the dirt or throw you out to the wolves because you're different from everyone else they see.
Right.
When you walk into a room or walk into a company or walk into the NBA, walk into the hip hop industry or music industry.
Right.
And if you're different.
Now I'm beyond that.
Right.
I don't get it as much now that I'm diverse.
Yeah, he doesn't get it.
Music, but also music is more diverse.
Yes.
I mean, now you've got, before you only had, the only white rapper was Vanilla Ice. And that's a horrible person to be like the first main one. Because anybody after that's like, oh, this dude's Vanilla Ice.
Yeah, and everybody's.
But then you get Eminem.
Right.
And then you got, he's trying to be Eminem.
Yeah, you do.
And now you got all those other people. You got Mac
Miller,
you got Mac Miller, you got G-Eazy, you got all these other people. Then on the R&B
Machine Gun
side.
Kelly,
Right. I forgot about him.
Yep.
What's he doing?
I don't know, man.
I know he's doing a lot of the Black Lives Matter stuff.
Yeah. So you got everything diverse now, especially now that everyone's starting to get their little hands in and dip their feet in pop music. And everyone
still
seems to be getting involved in music.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still some, stuff going on here and there with, whose face should be the face of this genre, whose face should be the face of rap.
Now, what did you think when Tank went off and in his post? Remember that? When he said he was going to quit music?
Oh, when he didn't get enough sales.
Because he said if he had been a white artist like Justin Timberlake, no disrespecting to Justin Timberlake, he said, but if he had been somebody like that.
This was years ago, right?
Yeah, this was
2-3 years?
Last year, 2 years ago.
Whenever
Tank put out that album and he was like so underwhelmingly sold by his standards.
Now,
because I'd kill for 7,000 right now.
How I feel about it, I don't think in that situation though, I don't think it has anything to do with race. He was hot back in his prime.
Right.
I think.
But was he ever the face of R&B?
No, he was never the face of R&B. We know like the biggest faces of R&B, R. Kelly
They're
and
still
all them.
faces
They're still
of R&B.
faces. Tank was good back in the day. You know, he came out in the 90s. You know,
Right.
for his age, he was doing good. But he was just never really that artist to begin with who can just follow the trends to me. He was just a type of artist who was good at doing what he was doing. You know, you
So
got
do you
you
think-
got artists like Robin Thicke, man. He don't, you know, he had some hits, you know.
Right.
But he really doesn't follow the trends like Justin Timberlake or, you know,
Right. He's not a trendy
singers
artist.
like that. You know
He's-
what I'm saying?
I would say Robin Thicke is more like a Maxwell-ish
Right. You know,
style.
Right.
Not necessarily the same music,
Right.
but stylistically, like level-wise.
Right, you know.
Like Alicia Keys is not a trendy artist.
right. You know, Justin Timberlake, he always been trendy. You know,
Right.
grew up in a what
Boy bands.
boy band, singing in NSYNC.
Right.
You know, did his own solo thing, and he was pop. And you know, he's a very, I think he's a versatile artist, but he was always the type of artist who can follow the trends and stay on top.
So do you think
you know?
that Tank is wrong saying if he was a white artist,
Yes,
he would have sold
yes,
better?
Yes, because look at Usher. For an example,
But he's Usher,
Usher is Usher, but he's still a black man
right?
pursuing in music. He's a singer,
But he's a trendy artist.
and he's a trendy artist. So that's the point. He's not a trendy artist. Saying that you're a white boy, he would have sold better wouldn't have changed anything.
But look at the trend, though. I mean, you got Adele doing soul music.
Mm-hmm.
You got Meghan Trainor doing doo-wop style, Motown soul music. And now she's doing, like, Destiny's Child style stuff,
Mm-hmm.
if you ask me, with that No song. She's a white artist. You got Robin Thicke, who he's the exception because he made a couple good songs, made a good career, steady career, and then blew up, and then faded.
My opinions on
So
that.
cheated on his
Yeah.
wife and messed it all up, and
My opinions
got
on
too
that.
big for his britches. But then, I mean, you got all these other artists. You got the Nick Jonases. You
Right.
got the other Jonas brother dude,
Right.
Joe Jonas's group.
My opinions on that is that they already created a big fan base that will follow them when they made that transition to
That's
doing
true.
that type of stuff.
That's true.
Tank
But
always.
what about Meghan Trainor then?
Meghan Trainor is still up and growing. I mean, she has.
But do you think a black artist could do what she's doing?
Do
Do you think
in
a
terms
black
of-
artist would even get the chance to do that nowadays?
I think a black artist could have a chance, but it's the way that they want to carry themselves. You know what I'm saying? Like Meghan Trainor, when she came out, she was that heavy girl, confident, and she's saying it's all about that bass. And then she's making people realize
Especially
that
if you got
she's
a brand
conf-
new blue bass
You didn't have
for
to
your
see.
birthday.
Yeah, he got a new bass guitar that I still
I
got
just gotta
here, but
fit
you
that
just
in
had to put
everywhere
it
I
in.
can.
Just because I said all about that bass. Oh yeah, okay. Show off and talk
That's
about
right.
your
That's right.
yeah.
I'm spoiled. My
spoiled
baby
boy.
spoils me.
Yes. Well, going back to the topic,
Yeah, back to that.
Meghan Trainor came out to me. This is just my personal opinion. She came out as a confident girl, didn't have to really throw her body out like that, didn't have to really over-sexualize herself, but her being her size she was when she came out, and her being confident and singing a song that was really catchy, really put her on that list
Right.
of a artist who has the potential to blow up, to have a potential to do something
now
great.
that you say that brings a different idea into my head. I like that. I don't know if y'all can see it. My baby's over there doing jewelry. She's making jewelry while we're making videos. Okay, that's enough screen time.
just over her hand.
Yeah. Should edit that out. No. No, but when you say she's the heavy set girl who comes in with confidence, why can't a black artist do that? Or can a black artist do that? How come Adele can come in heavy set, confident, singing soul music, but nobody likes Jill Scott?
Look at the artists that
Other
came
than
before.
people that like Jill Scott.
Remember when I told you the face of something?
Yeah.
No, I'm not trying to bring the whole color privilege thing back, but let's just be real. What about the artists before those people?
That's true.
Could they have set an example that made it harder
That's
for
true.
black artists to do certain things?
Right.
Like I believe black artists can be like those artists, But they would just like any other artist. Like Eminem had to prove himself to do certain things.
Right.
Or
Do you think it would be easier for somebody who you wouldn't be expected to do that music? Do you think it would be easier as like a what you call a color privilege? Would it be easier for a black man to get into rock music or alternative music and be pushed out into the public because it's different? And like how we seem to notice now that the white artists are getting pushed more out into the public doing R&B and urban music. Do you think that plays any part? That it's a little not what you're used to seeing?
I believe that it would not be easier for a black person to get into rock and alternative and get the type of respect that you would see white people would get if they were in it. It would have to take time for that. Just like it took time for white people to really get the type of respect to do the type of music they're doing now. It's just a whole like process, in my opinion. Like I know that there's some black country singers. I don't know the name of them. I don't listen to country.
What's that? Aloe Black, right? He's
I
one.
guess. He's probably one, but you know, seeing so many black artists making that type of move, going into that type of music, I'm not saying that they won't have fans. I'm not saying that they will be completely bashed, but just the type of respect they probably would wish they had, it would be hard to get that kind of respect and have their name, their face as
I
the
can see
face
that,
of,
especially because it takes a while to gain the respect within that musical community.
It takes time.
Like
it takes
what you
more.
think a bunch of people from the South who love their rock music and their country music are going to look at
a black person.
Imagine if 50 Cent did country music.
Right, you know what I'm saying?
Like,
it takes time, you know. It takes time. Like, you know, I think we had a discussion the other day. We were talking about the BET Awards. After Jesse Williams gave a speech, Justin Timberlake came out, said what he had to say. And a lot of people say, oh, yeah, well, you know, Justin, you stole our music. You did this, you all that. It's kind of like
saying
that.
He's inspired.
It's kind of like now all of a sudden there's a bash.
Right.
You know, because this is an artist who's very talented, by the way. Justin Timberlake is. He made good music. And, you know, these could be some people who actually enjoyed some of his music but ready to bash him for something.
Right.
You know, just the fact that you would think someone like him has the respect.
Right.
Which everyone's like, oh, yeah, Justin Timberlake's respected. But once something like that jumps up, now he's bashed.
Right.
You know, so going back to like a black artist getting into alternative and rock, it's like he could probably get respect for certain hits, but will he be bashed for little stuff? Will he get the respect?
Well, I tell you, from my point of view, a white artist is going to get bashed regardless, just because of the way the world is going right now and how everything is.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just the history behind it. But a black artist or any color artist, I mean, let's just pretend that white people invented rock music, which is not true. But let's just pretend that's how it was. Korean people do rock music.
Right.
Nobody care.
Nobody cares.
Korean people do rap music. Nobody cares. They got K-pop. They got all that stuff. They got all these rappers all around the world.
Right.
How can you sit here and say, oh, that's our culture. That's ours and supposed to stay ours. For me, music is meant to be shared. And I'm not culture is meant to be shared. Right. Culture cannot grow within the same spot forever.
Right. And I'm not trying to be off tangent or anything like that, but going back with what you said about Koreans and all these other race of people doing music that, you know, hip hop, you know, pop, R&B.
Right.
It's just that we're so stuck in this black versus white. We feel like it's just between black, white, black, white, black people, this is our music, white people, this is our music, black, white, white. We're ignoring everybody else. So when you look at culture and you look at, you know, Asians doing their thing like that, a lot of them pretty much, I feel, you know, kind of sorry, feel bad that they're not getting the respect.
Right. A lot of them get overlooked.
Not even the attention. You know, some of these people, and this going off like, you know, black versus white. Now I'm talking about other races. Some of them are so talented that they just get overlooked, like you said, and it's just ridiculous, you know.
So when you mention it's not even just about a black and white thing, that there's the bigger issues and other things going on, there really is. But it's interesting because there are cultures and there are times like me and my sweetie, we were on the Steve Harvey show, and we were on a show with one of her relatives and said that the Native American reservations even look at black people badly and call the N-word and all those other things. And it's like, what did black people ever do to y'all? Like, nothing. You know, and that's what Steve Harvey said. Like, what did we do to y'all? Like, we didn't do nothing. But it's interesting how the way that the world is right now, it's made out to be just a black and white issue. It's like, just watch the news.
Right.
You know, you watch the news, and they're real slick with the way they word things. You know, you see the one news story that I saw. A white guy runs in with a bunch of guns, and he's got tons of guns all in his house, and they de-escalated the situation, and no harm was done. The very next news story was a white cop killed a black kid, some, like, I guess 20-something-year-old or whatever, and it's just like, really? You put those two stories side by side, how are people supposed to feel?
Yeah, when you look at the news do everything just to get ratings. They do whatever it takes. You know, they get more viewers. They know they can stir up some mess. You know, attention. You know, all this attention they could possibly get from people viewing in, and then they go out. You know, people either, you know, riot, or people will complain, or people will talk a lot of mess, and it causes this racial division. But that's what, you know, the media wants. You know, news media really would love that. Gives them more ratings.
It's the Illuminati.
Yeah, right. Instead of, it is. It's like, you put it like that. But when you really think about it, that's how they make their money.
It's true.
And then when you look at,
but see, the news people are going to say, because I like to play devil's advocate sometimes. The news people are going to say, "Oh, we're just reflecting what's actually going on. We don't have an agenda." But your agenda is to get ratings. Your agenda is to make money.
They're not going to tell you.
If they're going to tell you every story in the world that actually happens, like good news, there's so much more good in the world than bad. Right. If there wasn't, we wouldn't be here.
And they know that the way people mindsets are, the way people are today, how we are. I don't want to say brainwashed as a word, but we're like conditioned to love bad news. Right. We love drama. We love drama. We like problems. We like to hear about who killed up a bunch of people at a nightclub, or who robbed someone, or who stole this, or who killed someone in Chicago. You know, stuff like that opens up ears compared to listening to someone who graduated. Right. Listening to someone who became successful doing something. It doesn't really entertain us. Right.
And just even just getting back to it, just when you watch the news, it's bad news, bad news, bad news, bad news, weather, sports, bad news, 30 seconds of a good news story, positive thing. Oh, look at the little dog playing basketball on a skateboard. Right. And in other news, 6 people died today in a crazy hit and run on this and this. It's like, the regular news is just bad.
Yeah, it's just bad. You know, and people take this information, you know, they listen to some news stations, they get some information, or they go on social media, listen to or read about the trending topics. They read all this negative stuff that the media puts out there, and they feed it. They feed it to more people. They feed these bad news to other people. You know, word of mouth can change anything. Right. They might add extra horrible stuff that happens. You know, horrible events to the situation don't even exist.
My biggest problem with these horrible events that happen, there's those people that post the fake posts. Right.
That's an example.
Share the
and that's the example.
And people go, "Oh man,
that's an example.
That's wrong. Right. That's bogus."
And that's exactly what I'm talking about.
And it ain't even true.
And then people will actually take some of this information, like let's say for instance, the Black Lives Matter movement. Nothing wrong with the movement at all.
Not at all.
You know, but I always said that there's 2 different types of Black Lives Matter movement. You have the ones that's actually doing the job, trying to create change. The ones that's actually trying to fight for rights, to also trying to fight for justice. But then you have the ones who are just there, ready for something to pop off, ready for a riot, ready for looting. You know, so it's like you have those bigger crowds. Like you got gangbangers now going up to Black Lives Matter marches talking about, oh, the cops wrong for killing us. But then as soon as they go home, they ready to talk about shooting up Lil Ray Way when they get back to the block, you know. But it's just...
It's like Black lives don't matter then.
Right.
It only matters when it happens the other way. But I hate when people try to say the Black Lives... Like people try to fight against the Black Lives Matter movement and they go, oh, well, what about black on black crime?
Right.
What about that?
Right.
What about this and this? What about Chicago? Nobody marches in Chicago. You mean nobody marches in Chicago? Like every Saturday morning, they're doing a peace march.
They're doing a peace march.
I'm pretty sure that Bill Billiken.
Right, Bill Billiken
parade. My bad.
Right.
The Bill Billiken parade. I'm pretty sure they're doing something with that.
Right.
You know, and they're marching with that. Probably have some type of peace thing.
Right.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
But nobody wants to talk about it.
Nobody wants to talk about it.
You only want to shine the light on the irregular.
Right.
You know, the irregular people.
Right. And it's
you
just...
You laughing at me over there.
Like I said.
I see you. At least I didn't say...
Like I said, you know...
Bud Billiken?
Bud Billiken parade, that's it.
All right, at least I didn't say Bill Belichick.
Like, yeah, this dude is goofy. Dude is too goofy. There's a lot of marches that go on.
Bill Belichick.
And, you know... It's crazy, man.
I'm probably gonna cut that whole part out, so it don't matter.
There's a lot of marches that goes on,
right?
For sure, you know. It's just that now, in my opinion, I would move the marches to a place where it become political, where it can be heard, forcing others, you know, people of all color to get involved. Because
see, if you do that, then Donald Trump's just gonna throw you out.
Well, we always have Jesse Jackson.
He threw out a baby.
Well, you know,
supposedly.
Well, like all I'm saying is, you know, you have these marches in these communities, which are good, but it's just that since it's not being heard, it never reaches where it should go.
Right.
You know, bringing it to a place where people of all color can hear, it makes it more political. Mm-hmm. And then that case, then you might have people that want to get involved and help out. But when you just hold it in small communities, there's always just smaller number of people compared to you see the big marches out downtown when someone get killed by a white cop. Right. You know,
so what do you think would be effective?
I think what would be effective will be to move these protests, move these marches downtown areas, or move them to areas where people can actually say, well, you know what, we want to get involved. What do you need? What do you want? How do we help out? You know, and then I want us black people, you know, to appreciate it. Appreciate those that come along, join the train to help us try to solve the issues that are going on in these poor neighborhoods. Don't throw certain people, you know, just because they don't look black. Don't throw them under the bus because they don't look like you. I hate when people say, this is the hood. You don't understand our problems. You can't help us because you ain't from the hood. Right. You know, it takes...
You're not black, so you don't get it.
Right. You're not black, so you don't get it.
You don't get it.
That's ignorant. You know, have these marches where people of all color can help you because we all in this together when it all comes down to it. The government forgets about the hood all the time. You know, so us as black people, we have a lot of stuff going on in our communities. You know, there's a lot of stuff that happens, and you know, we hear about tragedies every day, and we want things to stop. We're strong people, but what we do need everyone as a whole to come together and pray and come together, work hard, come together, try to find solutions, ideate on ideas, brainstorm what could help, what could work. You know, try our best to get the government involved. We have to have a voice that shouts out loud across the globe, not just in the hoods. So we need to do whatever we can to make everything come together and be more effective, you know.
Right. Here's the quickest fix that I could think of. Mm-hmm. And of course it wouldn't solve all the problems. But imagine the NBA is 75 to 85% African American.
Yes.
The NFL is like 65 or between 65 and 80%, I forgot what the number was exactly, African American. You know, imagine all the players in the players union say, we are not playing until something is resolved.
Right.
We are not playing.
Right.
We're good enough for you to own us.
Right.
The white people own the sports teams.
Right.
So what? You still own African Americans?
Right.
Is that
exactly.
how it is?
Exactly.
No, that's not how it works. People can say what they want to do. They're unionized.
Mm-hmm.
As a union, take that step. And I applaud, all of LeBron's friends,
Right,
Melo, Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, LeBron, all getting together on that stage and saying what they said.
Right.
But imagine if they said, I'm going to put aside my paycheck
Right.
and not play this game until
Right.
something is solved.
And that's what
imagine how much
and
people
that will be very
would
effective.
sit there and go, oh,
Right.
man, this is going to affect everybody.
Right.
This is going to affect
Right.
ticket sales. This is going to affect marketing. This is
Right.
going to affect
Right.
all the white people's pockets.
Right. And that will be
Then they'll
effective.
do something.
That's effective. And that's when it becomes political.
Right.
Now you're talking about a voice that's heard globally.
Right. Someone who's already universally loved.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone tunes in, watch basketball, NBA. There's a lot of people who love basketball, or let's just look at athletes in general.
Right.
All the colored athletes, doesn't matter, black, Mexican, whatever. If they all did the same thing, who want to be a part of it, who wants to get involved, they can all do the same thing, push their paycheck to the side and say, I'm not playing.
Right.
People are actually going to say, whoa, what's going on here?
Right.
Something has
I mean,
to
the
change.
WNBA had that big old thing going on.
Right.
That
Right.
the guys can stand out and talk about it, but the women can't. And
Right.
they're saying that it was a mix up with the code and the jersey regulations and things like that. So that can sort of be understandable.
Right.
But at the same time, they are taking a break.
Right.
The whole league is taking a break,
Right.
saying we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about these issues and let everybody's opinions be heard, and not just, when Orlando happens, everyone's provided a shirt because a bunch of gay
Right.
people got shot in a club.
Right. Right.
Like, it's okay to support that, but not an entire movement that's been
Right.
going on for years.
Right. And that's why
They're on the
Right.
right side of things, taking that break.
Right.
More leagues should do that.
Right.
But I
And
think if that's not going to happen, the players should step up.
Right. And another thing is, as a black man, I do believe that black people as a whole, they have a strong voice, powerful, but they need to be consistent with what they're doing. As far as like these protests,
Right.
if they want change, you have to be consistent with it. It can't be a protest for 3 weeks to 4 weeks where you
And then
see a
the new Jordans
huge
come out and
crowd. Right, the new Jordans come out, they ready
And
to go
everybody
camp.
forgets about it.
Right, or some type of beef like back 2 years ago, Drake versus Meek Mills.
Right.
Everybody all of a sudden stopped protesting about Michael Brown and
Right.
all them. So it's like
Instead, everyone
Right.
was sitting at
We're
home
fighting-
tweeting about
Right.
These
Right.
Meek Mill memes.
we get all enraged and and pretty much angry, and then we go out there and we're pretty much shutting the streets down, which I see the protests, and that's great that you're protesting. You're protesting, you're trying to make it political.
Right.
But just keep up with it. It doesn't make sense that we slow the momentum down, or we lose the people we usually would have, and then all of a sudden another situation jumps up that's similar. Here we go back out in the street.
Right.
That's why you hear the baby boomers, or you hear people who are older generation say we don't know how to protest. We don't know what protesting is, because back in those days they didn't have no cellular phones where you can go on Facebook or tablets.
Flash mobs.
They didn't have
hashtags.
Yeah, they didn't have computers where you can log on and see the news or whatever.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Everything was pretty much the radio, the black and white TV, or word of mouth. And they kept up with those protests. No one had to tell them to stay protesting.
Right.
They kept it up. You know, and I mean, it would be big crowds of them.
See, people actually believe in something.
Right. They believed in
Not
the change.
just a hashtag.
They didn't believe in a hashtag. They didn't believe in just a trend. You know, that's what they treating these protests like, a trend.
Right.
You know, something can easily distract them. And then they go back, they go out and talk about, well, you know what, yeah, it's wrong what happened, but guess what's coming out? The new Jordans, like you said, you know, and then everybody lose interest. You know, it just doesn't make sense to keep saying all of these things like, oh, yeah, they're treating us bogus. They're doing us wrong. They're killing our kind. They're killing this. Okay, cool. I understand what you're saying. Your voice matters. And, of course, Black Lives Matters, voice matters too. But you know what? You got to keep fighting. You got to keep fighting out there. You got to keep protesting. You got to keep it up. You can't slow it down if you want change. You got to keep it up.
We got a guest over here.
Jalisa.
Special. She gets 2.
I just want to say, elaborating on what you're saying, is how you said when the new Jordans or something come out, they like stop and they get distracted. You have to stay focused. If this is a real problem and nothing's going to get solved unless you keep up with what you're doing. If they think that they can just, let me put out a new product and they're going to, get deterred by that and it'll slow it down. No, don't stop. Don't slow up the momentum until something actually changes,
Right.
Like for an example, what was it, that Steve Harvey situation with the pageant? Remember that?
Yeah.
At the same time, the Sandra Bland court case was going on. A lot of people didn't even tune in or read about it.
Too many people were making
jokes about Steve Harvey.
How is that important?
And you know what? I'm getting on Facebook, just zooming around. I run across these people talking about, the white man used Steve Harvey to distract us from the Sandra Bland court case. That's the most ridiculous and stupid excuse that I've ever heard.
Right.
If you as a grown man or a grown woman, if you can't focus on more than one thing, then you know what? Honestly, you never took the whole Sandra Bland situation serious to begin with. You didn't take it seriously.
And my problem,
and
just going quick on Sandra Bland's situation.
Right.
We talked about that a lot.
Yeah.
And I was so against all that. I was like, I don't mean against. That's the wrong word. I was so upset at the situation.
Right.
I was so
we went to school with that girl.
Right.
Yeah.
I was hurt by that situation. And I was like, this is totally wrong. This is totally wrong. But then as time goes on and different facts are coming out and different diagnoses are coming out and different things, even all the investigations come out and say, no, this is actually what happened. People still want to say, nah, it was this and that. It was something. It was something else. They lying and this, and she was dead in that photo. Like,
right? When you start talking about a photo of her mugshot and you're saying she was dead, or the video cam of her walking around in the jail cell saying that's not her, she looked fat. It's like when you start making up all of these things, you start to sound delusional and crazy. Now the stuff that you're saying, it just makes you sound like you're crazy. It just sounds people won't.
They did the other day though. The clerk or whatever did say that they didn't actually check on her when they said they checked on her.
Right. Yeah. Like believe me.
But that don't mean they killed her. Yeah. That just mean they didn't do their job.
Right. So it's like some stuff when you start making stuff up and you start seeing a whole people jumping on the bandwagon, believing what other people say just because they want to sound right. They want it to be their way. They want, you can't do that if you're looking for justice. You have to stay with the facts. You have to stay with what you got, and you got to be real. You can't just make up fake memes and go off on that and thinking that you're gonna get justice. You got to stay real.
If you're gonna make memes, make funny memes.
Right, and if you protest, because everything you're
doing,
don't
make memes about serious stuff.
Everything you're doing, all these fake memes and all these things you're doing, is really, really killing everything you're trying to fight for.
Right.
You want justice.
I think the hashtags don't help.
Right.
Because you got all these people digitally saying, "Oh yeah, this matters," Black lives matter, all lives matter, blue lives matter, purple lives matter, yellow lives matter.
Yeah, alien lives matter, all this shit. Yeah.
Pandas matter, gorilla lives matter
Right.
with that stupid situation with
Right.
that kid. But then on top of it, people were just as quick, hashtag free my dude Ray Ray.
Right.
Free
Everything
Jimmy
you
from
do,
Degrassi.
Everything
Like-
you say, everything you do, everything you say can backfire on you.
Right.
So you got to be careful what you say. If you're fighting for justice, stay true with the facts.
Right.
Stay true with what you believe in, and keep it consistent. You know, don't let that momentum go away. And like he says, all these hashtags and memes. Don't be making up this fake stuff. It just kills the whole purpose of
Right.
what you're fighting for, you know? So just fight for justice and just stay real.
So I think that pretty much does it for our first show. It was pretty real, hence the name Real Talk, with Nine and Ryan and Nine, with special guest Jaleesa. I think that pretty much does it. On a light note, since you mentioned Justice League trailer looks dope.
I have to check that
You
out.
haven't seen it?
I haven't checked it out yet. I heard about it.
Bruh.
Oh, I missed it. I got to check it out. I'm going to check it out as soon as we turn this off.
Right. All right. And that has been Real Talk with Nine and Ryan and Nine on ChainBreakers TV. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.